foot health is probably the lowest hanging fruit in the world of longevity. In other words, people have overlooked their feet and to their detriment. Number one, feet are supposed to feel the ground. We're supposed to sense the ground underneath us. That's what informs the brain on exactly how to organize your kinetic chain. So if you can't get that information from the bottoms of the feet, from the 200,000 nerve endings that are on the bottom of the feet, the brain cannot figure out exactly how to scrunch the arch, how much to articulate the toes, how much to roll the ankle out a little bit to offset the tilt on the particular uneven ground you're stepping on, how deeply to bend the knee. All of that information is transmitted to the brain by the time you weight the foot when your foot lands. If you're barefoot or if you're wearing minimalist shoes. When you're wearing a thick, padded, cushioned shoe, all that information flies out the window. Hey, I'm Mark Sisson. I'm an OG renegade.
Hey, I'm Kyle Sisson, and I'm a renegade.
Renegades, let's talk Peluva, the 5-toe zero-drop shoes built to fix our feet, our wimpy feet. They spread your toes, rebuild real foot strength, and give you that alive, connected ground feel with just the right amount of smart cushioning. No more numb, lazy feet. The highest rated ones crushing it right now are the Strand Lightweight Trainer, that lightweight everyday legend, the do-everything beast, and the Strand ATR. This is the trail-ready beast, the trail shoes that I seek out of my mess of running shoes, and the ones that I've run well over 300 miles on. Why should you care about your feet? Well, those max cushion shoes that are all the rage have made our feet lazy. Peluva changes everything. I gotta be honest with you guys. I love how they feel on my feet. Every toe moves completely independently, gripping and spreading naturally. The ground connection is straight up addictive, and it just feels right. You'll get stronger arches, better balance, a smoother ride, and stronger feet. And maybe, just maybe, it'll vanish that injury bug that we can all battle. Check out our link tree to save 10% on your next pair of Peluvas. Stronger feet, smarter running shoes. Shoes that embody the spirit of a renegade. Check them out. Welcome back to another episode of the Renegade Podcast. Each episode, we get the best guests to come on, enjoy a brew. Sometimes they don't have a brew, but they come on to help you learn how to run better, walk better, live a little bit better. I don't know, maybe be better, live a little bit worse. I'm Todd, and with me is
Uncle Mark. Great to see you, Todd. Happy to be here today. We've got a pretty fun show tonight because we don't have one Sisson. We have two Sissons. It's that time of the season for the Sissons to join our podcast, and it's going to be fun. And the best thing about it is, Todd, you're going to be able to ask the questions, your favorite kind of questions, to these experts. And audience, do you remember what his favorite kind of questions are? He's got great questions. Don't get me wrong.
I'm going to get a chance to totally redeem myself.
And you're going to ask him why the foot is so important. It is pretty important for what we're discussing today.
And you know, Renegade listeners, we had Mark join us on an episode last year. Mark Sisson, you know him from Primal Kitchen, the Primal Blueprint, the godfather of the Primal movement. In the late 70s and 80s, this guy was an endurance machine. I think he ran a 2:18 marathon. He qualified for the Olympic marathon trials. And I believe he's early 70s, maybe 72. But this guy is fit. 72 years old. He puts Runkle, Mark, and myself to shame. And his son, Kyle, is joining us too on this episode.
He has an interesting background that doesn't necessarily, not the typical background that you think you'd have in order to create and build up a shoe brand. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's the operations side and the tech side that really feeds into how advanced these shoes are. And we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. And we are so happy to share an episode with you. If you like what you hear, head on over to our YouTube. Click subscribe. Why? Because that subscribe button helps push us in the YouTube algorithm, pushes us out to more people, help Renegade find an audience and help an audience find Renegade. And we really appreciate you subscribing, liking, and commenting. You can drop us an email.
Absolutely. Nice and easy. Renegade Podcast. Now that's run, not ren. renegadepodcast@gmail.com.
Whether you're out in a 5-toe shoe looking to have a brew, There is a bureau for you. Got a bureau
Yes,
tonight.
yes. That's like two strong ones in a row, Todd. You're on fire with these. Oh, and it finally happened.
I'll be right back.
This is live. Hyena. They'll keep you dry while they moisten your throat. No, that's terrible. Hyena.
Holy Lord.
Hyena. Just want to say welcome back to the Renegade podcast. Today we have a father-son team behind the Peluva shoes, Mark Sisson and Kyle Sisson. And Kyle, I want to just launch into this because I know that your dad's been here before, but most people know your dad from Primal Kitchen and from Primal Blueprint. But you've brought the tech and upside to the overall business. So walk us through your background. From what I understand, California Poly, from the software tech world. So how did a guy with your background end up building shoes with his dad?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So basically, I have a kind of interesting background, come from a couple different areas. I always wanted to sort of follow my dad's footsteps, no pun intended. And we sort of, it started out with me studying. Actually, I studied business entrepreneurship
Cool.
in college.
Nice.
So the idea was to come out of college, start a business. Came out, tried my hand at a business, didn't work out so well. And I sort of thought to myself, I actually want to have a concrete skill set. I want to feel like I really know how to do something. And business is just such a vague topic when you study it in school. It's such a vague subject. You're sort of learning a little bit about accounting, learning a little bit about finance, but you come out into the world and you don't really feel like you could hang your hat on something, like you have a really strong skill set. So I was pretty interested in sort of computer science and coding at the time. And I thought, you know what, let me try my hand at software and let me try my hand at learning to code. So I spent a couple years sort of teaching myself how to code, built some websites for a while, built some software. And then after a few years of that, I sort of got the feeling that I wanted to get back into business. And that was around the time when my dad had sold Primal Kitchen and really wanted to start Peluva. And so he and I got together and I said, I think I now have some hard skills that I can use along with my business background, and we can put this all together and try to build a company together.
That's awesome. That's great. And I'm sure, Mark, when Kyle came to you to build something together, must have been just joyous to be like, hey, all right, we're going to do something great, get to work together. Or were you reluctant? Were you like, hey, I don't know about this guy?
No. It was. I invited him. I've been looking for an opportunity to work with Kyle for, that's sort of a father's dream, right?
Absolutely.
So, and sometimes it doesn't work out well, but so far it's worked out really well for us. We get along famously. We're aligned on all the right areas, and then we complement each other. I'm more of a high-level thinker and idea person, and I'm not really detail-oriented, and Kyle's the opposite. He's really in the weeds with the tech and the details and all that stuff. And so, many very successful companies require both left and right brain, activities to be successful. So I think we make a really good team at that. So it's been a lot of fun so far. It continues to be a great fun. And, Kyle does an amazing job. I mean, I'm really proud of him. And I think he's learning a lot while he's going on, but he's already very, very competent in a lot of these areas. So, it feels great to plan the future of this business together and feel really confident that both of us can contribute.
That's excellent. And when you think about the future of the business, the Peluva footwear, it works off the thesis that we humans have totally forgotten and ignored our feet to the detriment of our health. And our co-friend, Mark Kukazella, in his book, he had a chapter titled "The World is Flat If You're a Foot." So maybe I'll start with you, Mark. From your perspective, what have runners and walkers and hikers and humans just seemingly overlooked about their feet or stopped paying attention to their feet? And what effects has that had on their health?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just gave a talk yesterday to about 500 physicians who were kind of wide-eyed at this proposition that foot health is probably the lowest hanging fruit in the world of longevity. In other words, people have overlooked their feet. I mean, the point that you're making, and to their detriment. The assumption has been, I mean, over the last 50 years that the companies like Nike and Asics and Reebok and New Balance, and you keep going on and on and on and on, have had our best interests in mind with their so-called tech platforms that they're building. Well, really, what this has done is it has encased our feet and taken a lot of the burden off the small muscles of our feet to do what their feet are supposed to do, which is, number one, feet are supposed to feel the ground. We're supposed to sense the ground underneath us. That's what informs the brain on exactly how to organize your kinetic chain. So if you can't get that information from the bottoms of the feet, from the 200,000 nerve endings that are on the bottom of the feet, the brain cannot figure out exactly how to scrunch the arch, how much to articulate the toes, how much to roll the ankle out a little bit to offset the tilt on the particular uneven ground you're stepping on, how deeply to bend the knee. All of that information is transmitted to the brain by the time you weight the foot when your foot lands, if you're barefoot or if you're wearing minimalist shoes. When you're wearing a thick, padded, cushioned shoe, all that information flies out the window. Then they add 15 millimeters or more of heel height. They raise the heel up to get extra cushion under the heel, because most runners happen to be heel strikers and they want to accommodate that bad form with extra padding. So now you've seen over the decades, shoes have gotten thicker and thicker and thicker, again, to the detriment of people. The injuries have not decreased. If anything, injuries have increased among runners. In terms of hiking, the sort of old classic stiff hiking boot with its rigid sole, people twist their ankles. People screw their knees up when they step sideways on a rock, or when they fall a slippery rock and land sideways. That's because the foot has lost all contact, all sensory input from that uneven terrain that the hiker is navigating. So when you put that foot in a stiff boot, you bypass all that sensory information, all of that ability of the ankle to actually roll the way it's supposed to roll. So you sprain an ankle, you twist a knee, you do all these things. When you dig into the science and we dig into the biomechanics of all of this and the kinetics, you realize how utterly ridiculous it is that we wear thick, padded, restrictive, cushioned shoes that compress the big toe against the other toes in the foot, causing bunions, which we know as runner's hallux, causing Morton's neuroma and plantar fasciitis and Achilles issues. You get Achilles issues because the raised heel shortens the calf muscle, which then puts more pressure on the Achilles to do the work that it's supposed to do. It's a litany, a long list of bad things that happen as a result of the footwear that we've been sold over the past 50 years as being high tech and encouraging running. So Kyle and I came into this, and my background as a runner, I was one of the first guys to wear the thick cushioned shoes, and also one of the first guys to suffer from injury as a result of that. So, in fact, I had to retire from a relatively illustrious running career because of injuries brought on by the footwear that I was wearing. So that goes back 45 years. So I'm sort of, I have a real passion for fixing this problem that I think is endemic to the industry.
This actually pairs well with my next question. So, Kyle, your dad's famous for saying you shouldn't be running. And we've already joked about the RUNEGADE side of things, but it's the secret to longevity. So what's your personal relationship with running? Did you grow up running with your dad too, as well? Did you have any injuries at some point that converted you to being more of like a barefoot minimalist user? And how do you use Peluvas in your own life?
It's funny. So running was never something that I enjoyed. I grew up playing team sports. I've played every sport: soccer, baseball, basketball, football, tennis. Running was always the punishment. So for me, hearing and it's really interesting hearing my dad talk about his career, and it was sort of like a mixed bag. It was really fond memories of finishing races, right? But never the actual race. You know, it was always, this is painful, the whole race, right? When you're running a marathon or you're competing in a triathlon, doing some long endurance event, it's really about, you know, how much pain can you endure and how much can you sort of get your mind in control. Whereas a lot of these other sports, you're in a flow state, you're enjoying the game, and running becomes easy. So yeah, I know there's a runner's high that people experience from simply running, but for me, running was always a very important component of all the sports that I played. So I, unlike my dad, who didn't have as much of a team sport sort of childhood, I would say, and just focused strictly on running, you know, again, I did running to perform in the sport that I was training for at the time. So for me, you know, I had a bunch of different types of shoes, right? I had soccer cleats, I had tennis shoes, I had basketball shoes. And it was always really interesting for me to put on all these different types of shoes and sort of feel what each one did, how it made my foot feel, how it changed how I move. Spent a lot of time in cleats. So I played, like I said, soccer and then ultimate frisbee for a long time. So a lot of time in cleats. Those formed my feet in a lot of ways, right? Cleats are very narrow, restrictive. I mean, they need to be because you're trying to keep your foot and allow it to cut really hard, sharp angles. But they shaped my foot very negatively. So for a long time, I thought I had a very narrow foot. And I didn't realize that I actually probably wasn't supposed to have a narrow foot until I started wearing minimalist shoes, going around barefoot. And I watched how the shape of my foot actually changed. And I could feel how the muscles of my feet were growing and strengthening. And, you know, I didn't have this weak, thin, flat foot anymore, which was really shaped from being bound in a cleat for so long. So for me, when I started getting into minimalist footwear, and, you know, my dad was into minimalist footwear when I was young. So maybe I was 10, 11 years old. And these minimalist footwear brands, early startups, would send shoes to our house, right? They would say, hey, can you try this? Can you try this shoe out? Send it to my dad, wanting him to promote it. And we had so many shoes, he would just give me these minimalist shoes and I'd try them out. I mean, my favorite was like, we had a chainmail shoe one time. It was basically like a chainmail sock. And just like wore that around. But I would try these out times. And yeah, exactly. I would try these out and I was always so fascinated by them and how they made me feel. And, you know, growing up as a kid, running around in fields, being barefoot, apart from the occasional bee sting, you know, nothing felt better than just bare feet and grass to me. So that was something that always really resonated with me. You know, I grew up in Malibu on the beach, running around in sand, a pretty barefoot environment. And so really when I started to wear, again, minimalist shoes, I just felt like the comfort level was so much greater. I didn't have this weird pains in my knees that I couldn't really, you know, pinpoint what it was coming from. And it took me a while to realize, oh, that's these shoes, that's these foams that I'm standing on that are kind of making me wonky and removing stability from my knees and all these things. So yeah, I really got into barefoot shoes in an effort to improve performance in the sports that I was playing.
The RUNEGADE is proud to be sponsored by Thrive Protein. Power your runs and fuel your endurance with Thrive Protein, the premier Canadian-made supplement brand crafted for endurance athletes. This family-owned brand uses a science-based approach to develop high-quality electrolytes, a carbon electrolyte powder, creatine, vegan protein powders, whey protein, and super greens. And they are constantly innovating. Recently brought to market EnduraFuel, hydration and fuel all in one. Each serving offers 30 grams of carbs in a 2-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose. You also get from sodium, potassium, to calcium, and to magnesium, replenishing all the elements that you're sweating out during your efforts. It gives your body the energy it needs to perform at its peak. Plus, the lemonade flavor tastes amazing. Thrive is perfect for any athlete chasing any distance. Visit thriveprotein.ca and use the code RUNEGADE for 20% off your order. Thrive Protein. Fuel your relentless pursuit of adventure. are going to go back to something that Mark, what you shared. You had your first pair of the, I would say, super shoes of the day. Do you remember how your running stride or your form changed from your first shoe that you were wearing to these new cushion shoes?
That's such a great question. That's such a great question. So I started running in 1966, and I was 13 years old, and I ran to and from school in what I was wearing, which was Chuck Taylor's, the
Converse,
flat Converse shoe, which was sort of the campus casual of the day. A few years later, Phil Knight created a shoe, or he imported a shoe, the Onitsuka Tiger, which was the first real minimalist shoe. It was a thin, flat shoe. I know you've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when they arrived in a bag, they were compressed. They were just like, they looked like bacon it was like a packaged bacon you'd buy in the store. And, but the point is, with those shoes, even a good runner could only run 45 or 50 miles a week. And then it was your feet that told you it was time to stop running. So you had to be an ectomorph to be able to even wear these shoes. B, you had to have good form, right? You could not be a heel striker in these shoes. You had to have good form out of the gates because it was pretty much like barefoot. And what was happening over time was that I, like many of my contemporaries, wanted to put in more miles. We were starting to read, Ken Cooper's book, and then Bowerman wrote a book on training, and some of the Lydiard, Arthur Lydiard, and the next thing you know, lots of miles seemed to be the way to do this, but you couldn't do it because your feet were the limiting factor. It was the bone bruising and the bruising on the bottom of your feet from these thin shoes. So Bowerman and Knight got together and they created this thick shoe, and they really created for Kenny Moore. So Kenny Moore was an Olympian. He had foot issues that were not resolved. He wanted to train, wanted to be able to run and compete at that elite level, at a world-class level. And so the whole concept of a thick shoe was really invented for good runners, great runners, thin guys with long legs, large lung capacity, and high pain tolerance, who had good running form, who could now put in more miles with cushioned shoes. That was the original concept. And in my case, I put in more miles, but now I had this sort of wobbly thing in my foot. So while I was getting quality miles when I was doing my 45 or 50 miles a week, now I was getting kind of junk miles doing 90 and 100 miles a week. And with the wobbliness of it, what happened was I got chondral malacia. And so my senior year in college, I sat out my cross country season because I walked around campus with a cane. I had chondral malacia, that knee patellar knee tracking thing, as a result of this wonkiness. So in 1976, I became one of Steven Subotnick's first miracle cures of chondral malacia when he built hard acrylic orthotics for me to put in my wonky shoes, which then prevented me from pronating. So the knee pain went away because I wasn't wobbling in the shoes. But then over the next couple of years, I got hip tendonitis. So all of these, it's like putting a shim, under you're in a restaurant with an uneven table and you put a shim under one side and then somebody moves it a little bit. Now you got to put a shim under the other side, and tables always, that was me. And so I realized that, this kinetic chain, we're all born with a perfect kinetic chain. And I don't care if you're knock-kneed or bow-legged or you have wide hips or narrow hips or you've got whatever. We're born with a perfect kinetic chain. It's perfect for you. It's not similar to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, but it's perfect for you, provided you give that input to the bottoms of your feet. So your brain knows how to organize your perfect kinetic chain. Well, if you screw that up by putting on these overly built, high arch supporting, cushioned, restrictive shoes, now the problems start to amass. And now the issues, the injuries, they sort of work their way up the kinetic chain. It might start with bad ankles. You might roll an ankle. It might start with with shin splints. It might start, as in my case, with chondromalacia or knee issues. It may be lower back issues. It can be sciatica. It just depends on, everybody's got a different way their kinetic chain, their posterior kinetic chain works. But it only works if you have the ground feel, if you have the sensory input. And if you're a runner, that means you have to have good running form to begin with. So you cannot be a heel striker. I mean, look, there's tens of millions of runners, and some of them don't get injured, but the statistics are that 50% of runners get injured every year. That's just a horrible statistic in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So what I promote, first of all, the concept that the only people who should be running are runners. Again, ectomorphs, long legs, large lung capacity, and a high pain tolerance. Then you can run every day. Now, if you want to run once a week as part of your training, and you sprint a little bit and you lift weights and you ride a bike, but you want to run once a week, that's fine. But running is catabolic. In and of itself, it tears muscle tissue down. So every day that you run is a day that you prevent yourself from building back from the previous day that you ran, which is why most runners who run 60, 80, 100 miles a week have very low muscle mass, right? They may be skinny. Some of them are skinny fat, but they can't keep muscle on. Even if they lift weights, they can't keep muscle on because running is catabolic. So I promote walking as anabolic. I promote walking as, again, anti-aging. It's a part of your longevity strategy. It's anti-catabolic. It is a basic human activity. So it's like A and B. Yes, I promote running, but running A is I promote walking. You got to walk, but you have to walk in the right shoes, in the right footwear. Because if you walk in the wrong footwear, you're just creating the same problem over and over again. You're still exacerbating the problem that you were having with your bunions or with your plantar fasciitis or with your Achilles issues. So, but I think we've hit upon this kind of magic formula about getting people to reacquire not just a better health, but a stronger gait pattern, a stronger walking pattern, a stronger base, and a more erect posture, which is one of the things that happens. People notice when they're walking with minimalist footwear, and particularly with Peluva, but that their posture automatically improves. They walk more upright. So there's a lot of these things that were brought on by the running shoe industry. I mean, just regarding the posture, if you tilt your heels up an inch higher than your metatarsal heads, everything in your kinetic chain, your back starts to automatically compensate for that shift on the center of gravity, the shift of balance. That all goes away when you have a wide, thin, flat, flexible shoe that allows you to stand on solid ground and maintain a firm, erect posture.
So a couple things to unpack there. So as somebody who identifies as a skinny fat, or my wife, as she likes to say, surprised chubby, I really think that this does align with me in like getting out there, because like I find that like when I've gotten a new pair of dress shoes, it has sometimes if it's not a great quality pair of shoes, like I start feeling it almost instantly in my knees or even up in my hips, and you try and walk through it and then it just kind of it amplifies and it gets worse and worse. And I've had then the lower back pain. And as you said, so it's all part of that chain. It keeps on going and it hurts. And I can only imagine how the shoes, so Kyle, going back to what you were saying earlier about being involved in like team sports and other sports other than like the running side of things. When you first started wearing Peluva in some of your other sports that you tend to enjoy, so let's say golf, for example, did you notice a drastic improvement or change in how you swung and just how you felt after you played like a round of 18 or more? Like how did that impact your game?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So golf sort of historically is, it's a formal sport, right? So people wear nice formal clothes. They basically wear dress shoes, and they started out, originally wearing dress shoes, super stiff, super narrow. And that's still kind of how golf shoes are designed. You have FootJoy and G4 and these companies that basically make a very stiff, very narrow, rigid golf shoe with heel drop, so you're elevated in it. I wore those shoes playing golf for a long time, and at the end of the round, every time you can't wait to get the shoes off. You cannot wait. It's like your knees hurt, your back hurts, your feet hurt, and this is me speaking from personal experience, but a lot of other anecdotal experience too of people just saying, I don't like my golf shoes. When we first developed the Peluva golf prototype, I mean, I knew it was a hit right away because you go out and you walk. Sometimes you're walking 5 to 7 miles if you walk the golf course, and feeling the ground beneath you, walking in such a comfortable environment. Um, there's really just nothing like it. And so when you go to swing and you're balanced, you can feel exactly how the ground is beneath you. If you're on an uneven lie or some surface, whatever, it changes everything. And people don't really realize that until they try it, because again, it's not something that has ever really been common in golf. So you would never have, you probably would have never tried another shoe. No shoe does this. It's always about how stiff and elevated can we make the shoe to give you 3 extra yards on your driver. Well, the common saying in golf is drive for show, putt for dough. 3 yards on your driver is not going to change your game at all. Having more feel when you're 20 yards away from the hole chipping, or when you're on the putting green and you have an 8-foot putt, making that putt, that's what's really going to change your golf game. And so that stiffness that all golf shoes have, it's totally unnecessary, and it actually harms a lot of the rest of the game, the 95% of the game that you're playing otherwise.
And so then, just one follow-up question to that. Like, their shoes, they're head turners, right? So I imagine that when you're on the course, I know Todd and I work together at the office, and when he's wearing his Peluvas around the office, I'm like, hey, and I know that you probably get stopped still in the elevator, Todd, and people just ask, like, what are those? And it's an opportunity to not only educate on the brand, but then why you're wearing them and what it actually does for you. And there's quite a lot of questions. I know it's great, but it does definitely get attention, don't they? I think that's one of the best things about them, right?
Mark, you're right on. Mark and Kyle, like you're right on. Like when you think, and I don't know like how quick the medical industry and doctors and the advice turns so fast that if you were ever having a foot problem, the first thing that you go to the doctor, we'll get you an orthotics right away. And maybe they forget to tell you, or we forget to hear, but you don't need them for the rest of your life. So the next thing you know, you got orthotics for 13 years, and then your foot is in these big cushiony shoes because they feel good. Well, they feel good because they feel good on your feet. They don't really feel good as you're walking, because it doesn't really feel good to walk on these big cushiony things because you're not even getting 5,000 steps a day. So you talk about like stiffness, and you talk about the prescription of why did we arrive at this place? Like, why was that the easy route for doctors to prescribe, maybe your opinion, Mark, to solve a foot problem, orthotics and cushion?
Yeah, I think, first of all, like much of the medical profession, which I've had an issue with my entire career. I mean, I've been a contrarian for the longest time. I mean, I've argued with cardiologists about heart disease, which is not to say that, my opinion is more valid than theirs, but, they learned what they learned 40 years ago. And the science has changed a lot since then. With podiatrists, you would think podiatrists, for example, would want to fix the problem at its source, which is understanding that the foot is an amazing organ. It's an amazing appendage. It's an amazing design. It's incredible. It's what defines us as human beings. And then to think that the way to address a pain or an issue of imbalance is with surgery or orthotics. I mean, that's a business that they're in. And it's, we've, as you know, Cucuzella is one of the good guys, right? And he'll agree that the only way to fix a real foot problem is with either training the feet, in a physical therapy protocol, or by wearing certain types of minimalist footwear and going barefoot when you can. You cannot fix these problems over time by making the shoes thicker and thicker and thicker, or by making the orthotics, stiffer and stiffer. And yet, we're a society that expects instant cures and instant gratification. So, to their credit, I guess, when you walk into a doctor's office and you have knee pain, and they say, well, there's a couple things we could do. We could get rid of your knee pain immediately by giving you orthotics. It won't fix the origin of the problem, but it'll address your pain immediately. And then if you want to address the origin of the problem, it's going to be, several weeks of therapy, or it'll be, putting on these funky looking 5-toed shoes and just walking with intention. Most people who are looking for the magic pill, whether it's the, GLP ones right now, or the blue light, red light therapies, or the methylene blue injections, or the cryotherapy, or whatever, they're all the biohacking. So, we have a societal problem where people have told doctors, give me a fix right now, fix it today. I want to walk out of here with a pill, an anti-inflammatory and an orthotic, or fix it with surgery. And, Kyle's wife had bunion surgery when she was a teenager and wishes she hadn't. He can tell the story, but I mean, it's a pretty compelling story.
Well, maybe we can dive into that, Kyle, because I have my wife and 2 daughters, and the footwear they wear, it does not. You can understand why they have sore feet, because it pushes that big toe up against the second toe. So maybe you could describe the challenge that your wife was having.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife, she grew up wearing heels. She started working at a young age, did a lot of horseback riding. So she wore, very formal shoes or horseback riding boots, which are very narrow and stiff. And she ended up developing pretty severe bunions on both feet at a young age. Bunions are a really, really interesting thing, because a lot of people will say, it's entirely genetic. It seems to be there is a genetic component, maybe a predisposition. But if you look at sort of unshod populations and groups of people who don't wear shoes, there's basically no instances of bunions. So it seems to be, if not entirely environmental, very, very much, very highly attributed to footwear. So shortly before we started Peluva, she was dealing with a lot of pain from the bunions, and she decided to have surgery. Initially, she wanted to do the surgery on both feet. The doctor said, let's do one foot first and see how you feel. And, I don't know if you know, bunion surgery is excruciatingly painful, and basically knocks you out, takes you out for, I think it was like a 6-month full recovery, basically. But they go in, they put a screw in your toe, shave down the bone. You essentially permanently lose a large amount of mobility in that toe because of the process and the procedure and the screw that you now have in your toe. So she got that surgery on the first toe, and she was like, I can't do the second toe. It'll just be too painful. I guess I'll just have to live with this on the other foot. About a year later, we started prototyping Peluva, building it out. I said, you know what? Why don't you try this? See if it helps you at all. It was totally life-changing for her. She started wearing Peluvas. She can completely splay her toe now on the foot that has a bunion. Now, with a bunion, what ends up happening is you get this calcification of the bone that's sticking out. So it initially starts with the big toe getting pushed in, and that forces sort of the joint to get pushed out. But then this part that's sticking out starts to calcify and harden. And so that part doesn't go away, even if you correct and sort of straighten the toe. But it's incredible. I mean, her ability now to fully splay that toe, it's actually better than the toe that she had the surgery on, right? So she has more mobility and more ability and flexibility in the foot with the bunion than she does on the foot that she had surgery on, which, appears straight and doesn't have the bump anymore. But she lost a ton of that functionality because of that procedure. And she didn't know at the time, but it was something that really could have been corrected by, wearing Peluvas or not wearing such restrictive shoes. And at the same time, forcing splay into her foot. That's another one of the things that people don't understand is just because you're wearing a wider toe box shoe, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use that space. So a lot of times, especially in cases of bunions, that toe is so stuck over there, that putting it in a wider environment, it's better. It's going to be less painful. It's not going to add to the problem, but it's not going to correct the problem in the way that Peluva does, because Peluva is actually going to pull that toe slightly into a straighter position. And then it's going to allow that toe to move independently. So you're basically pulling it and you're sort of working it as you walk. And it's essentially becomes a dynamic stretch, right? You're putting it in a slightly stretched position and then you're moving it through that range of motion, which is not something you get with even with a wider toe box minimalist shoe.
Hey runners, we all hunt that gear sweet spot. Functionality that actually delivers, comfort that never quits, performance that pushes you harder, and pieces that have you looking like the badass you are out there. But the real craving? Gear that straight up disappears. No fiddling, no chafing, just pure flow and the freedom where you can crush your miles. That's where our friends at Path Projects come in clutch. I'm obsessed with their Graves PX running shorts. That independent suspension design is straight wizardry. Baseliner locked in, outer short gliding free, zero rub, zero chafe, and pockets that actually work. And their highly rated designs keep on stacking wins. The Pyrenees hoodie, next to level, T19 magic with the snorkel hood and thumbhole hand protection, perfect for those crisp morning runs or just layering. It runs like a dream and chills like your favorite casual piece. Just pure performance that you forget that you're wearing. Premium everything from an independent crew that gets the runner's life. And as a special thank you, you can use the code TRP10 for 10% off your order for a limited time. Check them out, Path Projects. Whatever your path, enjoy your journey. Kyle, you mentioned the word splay. I promise you, if we stopped 100 people, 98 of them would not imagine that their big toe should be able to move and splay. And I think that was eye-opening to me when I first ran into some foot problems when I found Dr. Mark Cucuzella. And the prescription I was told was, you have flat feet, you need orthotics. And I ran into Dr. Mark and he's like, no, like, here, try some foot exercises. And I couldn't move my big toe at the time. But then afterwards, I could move my big toe like my thumb. And people look at you like you're strange now. Like the big toe is supposed to move. So I'm glad that you mentioned splay. Bring back splay again. I like that.
That's right. You should see Todd doing his sign language with his feet. Like he's really, really good at it. And so I imagine from that story, though, that we can anticipate some sort of high heel version of Peluva as a prototype sometime soon. Is that in the works at all for your wife? No. Like
we say a Peluva for all occasions. We haven't got to the heels yet.
Well, that's all right. But with that though, so we know that Peluva has some serious endorsements from podiatrists and even what is it? The world's longest drive champion is that Morgan? Morgan Borgmeyer is the name that I have here. But so with that, I imagine that you've had opportunities to meet folks from all over the world. So who has been the most unexpected fan of Peluva that you've come across over the years? Is there somebody who's reached out to you? And I mean, sometimes you can't really disclose if it's a celebrity or anything, but I'm sure there's famous athletes and things like that have reached out to just thank you for the work that you've done. Anybody that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, recently a well-known running back for the San Francisco 49ers was bragging about, or not bragging, but showing himself in his court shoe, just having played pickleball. With we have a lot of people playing pickleball in our court shoes. Yeah, and some of the Phil Heath, who's a 7-time Mr. Olympia, big fan of what we're doing, and only does leg days wearing Peluvas. We have a lot of movement specialists who are wearing Peluvas and in their training and I don't know. Kyle, what do we got? We have like 300 influencers, so I'm just trying to think.
That's great. I mean, I think one that stands out is the soccer player Paul Pogba, who reached out. He's quite a well-known global icon in soccer. I think what's always fascinating to me is when how receptive people are, and maybe the fact that some people you wouldn't think would be receptive, not just for functional or mobility stuff, but people who are just like, oh, those are really cool, those are really unique, I want to try them out. And then they try them out, and it's someone you'd see and you'd never think that they would be wearing a shoe like this, right? But they try it out, and then they're like, oh, it actually feels incredible and works incredibly as well. So yeah, that's always really gratifying for those types of people, celebrities and whatnot, to want to get a pair of the shoes.
Something that's come to mind. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Mark, for the everyday athlete. So I had these original pairs of the Strand ATRs. They're nice and muddy. I love hiking and running the trails. I think I got about 300 to 400 miles on them. And I love putting them on and hitting the trails because of proprioception. Mark, you touched on it, being able to feel the ground.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's a whole different ball game to feel. If we call it foot candy when you're stepping on uneven surfaces, particularly boulders or cobblestones. And every step you take, every time look, if you're going to run, we can talk about what it takes to run in these. We don't advise people to run in these until you're very well trained. They're the best running shoe you'll ever wear, but you have to know how to run. But for hiking, when you're not doing the G forces of running, and when you're hiking, it's your own body weight every time you land. Every time you land in a different orientation on a different type of rock, it's strengthening your foot with every single step. And over time, I have a reflexologist who comes and gives me a 90-minute foot massage once a week. It's like one of my favorite parts of my week. And she's one of the best in the country, and she teaches at reflexology conferences and things like that. And she says I have the strongest feet she's ever seen, that she's ever worked with. And by that, she means the most completely strong all around, when she works all of the stuff. I don't do foot exercises. I just walk and hang out and do all the stuff I do in Peluvas all day long. Now, granted, I've been doing this in other minimalist shoes for a long time before Peluva, but the point is I'm 72 years old and I have really strong feet now as a result of my living in Peluvas and just moving and walking in them.
It's great. Something that just came to mind when we're talking about some of these folks that you might not expect wearing Peluvas. And you can take this. This is totally yours if you want it. But have you ever thought about having an advertisement with like Bigfoot wearing Peluvas, and it's just like the truth is out there or something? Like, I know that's X-Files, but I'm just thinking like something that you wouldn't expect, but meanwhile all along it's been Bigfoot wearing Peluvas. You can see
that's I love that. That's brilliant.
And then the other one that came to mind was when we were talking about floppy feet earlier. It's like nobody wants a floppy handshake, so why would you want floppy feet? And anyway, so with that, like, maybe here's an opportunity to talk about what you have on the go in terms of some new product. Like, I'm sure you're working on some different shoes that you have a lot to offer right now, and you're spanning a lot of different sports and casual wear and a little bit of everything. But is there anything that's new that you're able to hint towards, maybe not reveal entirely, or anything that you're working on that you want to share with everyone?
There you go.
Yeah, well, it's funny where there's so much white space for us to develop products, because it's every shoe that we do in a sort of new a new area. It's totally unique and it's sort of never been done before. So our biggest thing is actually paring back development, because we want to develop everything. We want to make a shoe for basketball. We want to make a shoe for this, for whatever. And so we have to constantly go, okay, guys, let's as a team, let's hold it back. What does the world really need? So one of the projects we're most excited about right now is a recovery shoe, a shoe that you can sort of wear around the house. I won't give too much detail, I guess, but something that's maybe a little more user-friendly, something for people to get into easily, but to really start to experience the basics of what it is that we have to offer, right? Because sort of our thesis is you can't knock it until you try it. And we want to give you the opportunity to try it without diving in full, head first and becoming a part of the Peluva community. How can we extend a hand to you to just try this concept, feel it? What is it like for your toes to actually be spread out, right? What is it like to wear a glove and not a mitten, like how is that feeling? Because we're sort of convinced that when you try that, it'll open up your eyes to a whole new world of footwear that you never imagined before.
I can understand, Kyle, like probably like the versions and all the innovation, like think of every shoe that you can go after. And there's one thing I've been, started the baseball season. I'm watching baseball, and with that super slow motion that they have nowadays, you can't help but see the runners running in their spikes with a giant heel strike. Now, some, Mark, to your point, are amazing runners. They're running like they're sprinters, but the rest of the plotters out there, they're hammering their heels into their ground. And probably if you keep an eye on them, they're going to be on the DL. They're going to get injured. So maybe the baseball shoe, you can get that big toe going. That'd be an interesting one once you get caught up.
The sky's the limit. Cleats, cycling shoes. I mean, I've as a former triathlete, I always hated the fact that I would put on these really, really tight cycling shoes, ride my bike for 100 miles, and then get off with feet that were completely numb. That like literally the nerves had been crushed for 100 miles, and then put them into running shoes and go run 10 miles with numb feet. That doesn't have to be that way. I don't know why cycling shoes were always so restrictive. So that's one area that we look at. But, we just launched a winter boot. We launched it late in the season. It was a couple of months behind, but it's getting a lot of traction, pun intended. And so I think when next season comes around, we're going to do really well with this winter boot. And it's going to allow people to access, slightly snowy trails in the wintertime. Certainly walking around town in the northern, climates of the U.S. and Canada.
How, and maybe you can't give this away, but I imagine that, with mittens, for example, when you have your fingers together, they stay, warmer, right? But with toes, if you're spreading them out, you must have a lot of insulation there to ensure that each of the, your pinky toe doesn't get frozen, right? So,
yeah, we don't, but we have socks that will accommodate that. So you put a 5-toed sock inside of a well-constructed 5-toed shoe, you're getting closer. But that's a good point. That is sort of, I think we have like a 32 degree
rating
sort of
limit
on it right now. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. One of the things, Mark, that is so unique about Peluvas, which helps offset that a little bit, is moving your toes independently. It actually helps tremendously with circulation in your foot. So a lot of times, instead of just having, while for sure keeping your hands together, right, in a mitten keeps them warmer, some of that offset is just by moving your toes, getting blood flowing, which is not just for warmth. I mean, it's so valuable for everything, right? You need blood flow for, plantar fasciitis and all these other things. Your whole body needs blood flow, right? So it is very important, but that helps a little bit offset the cold nature of having your toes separated.
Yeah, and historically, if you look at ski boots, people come in from a long day of skiing with their toes absolutely frozen, or hiking boots. That's the thing that alpine climbers lose toes, even though they're in that, in those boots that are theoretically insulated.
It's true.
I think a lot of that has to do with lack of circulation because the boots are so tight. So there, hockey skates, again, your feet get cramped in hockey skates because they're so tight and you're out on the ice, it's cold. And then if you play pond hockey, it's even colder.
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
don't know if you guys played pond hockey ever, but
Oh, yeah.
Well, yes, we have.
yeah. Okay. So
Two good
you know what I'm
Canadians.
saying. So anyway, so I think it's, as Kyle said, a lot of it has to do with the restrictive nature of typical footwear is cutting off the circulation, which lends itself to much more sensitivity to cold weather than being able to articulate toes individually, keep the circulation going, and have them each wrapped in an individual, in a sock, glove-like sock.
That's fascinating.
Well, with that, Mark, I was going to ask you. Okay, so I'm a Renegade listener. I'm a new runner. I've been experiencing some foot problems, and I'm listening to this episode, and now I want to explore strengthening my feet. What's the best way for them to go about, and how long would it take them to start to see some positive benefits of strengthening a foot?
In many cases, days to strengthen your feet. if you put on Peluvas and you go for a walk and you walk 2 or 3 miles, let's just say the first day, you get home and you go, my feet are tired. Well, that's a good thing. That means the small muscles, the intrinsic muscles of your feet are working for the first time. Like they wouldn't have been tired if you'd worn the show. Now your ankles might have been tired, your knees might have been wonky, whatever. But now that your feet are actually tired in a good way, it's like when you get back from the gym after you've lifted weights, your muscles are a little fatigued. They're not sore; they're just fatigued and tired. That means that they're getting stronger and stronger. So again, the more you walk in Peluvas, and we encourage people to walk 3, 4, 5, 6 miles a day with intention, you'll notice several things happening. Number one, if you're a duck-footed runner or duck-footed, you'll start to get more parallel because the big toe wants to be the last point of contact on the ground. And so if you walk intentionally and you feel the ground and you start to think, plant the heel, roll off the big toe, plant the heel, roll off the big toe, walk upright with good posture, you'll start to strengthen this entire kinetic chain. Then people say, well, maybe I'll just, then I'll skip for a couple of, do a couple of skip drills or something as part of my walking. Or I'll go over to the grass and I'll do a couple of 10-yard sprints to just play around with that. Then when you go put on your running shoes, and we're not suggesting that day 6 or week 4 you start running in Peluvas. If you're good at running and you know how to do what you want, great. But put on your running shoes and go for a run, and your feet will be stronger as a result of the time you spent in the Peluvas. Now, what you might find is you now want to buy a wider toe box running shoe than what you're used to. But we're hear people saying that they've noticed their feet are stronger within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they become more resilient. The ankle's stronger, the big toe is now activated, and because the big toe is activated, abducted away from the rest of the foot. Now you engage the glute when you're walking. Now your glutes feel like they've gotten a workout when you're walking, as opposed to when you don't activate the big toe, when you crush the big toe against the other the other toes at the metatarsal head, and you deactivate the glute. The problem is then your glute loses that connectivity, and so the compensatory muscles around the hip have to come into play to make you complete the step, and now you get injured, other sort of minor injuries that way. It's weird. This whole, the perfect kinetic chain thing is really an amazing thing if you let the feet get fully involved in your gait.
Absolutely. And along with that, Mark and Kyle, I came across a quote, and this goes back 2,500 years from Socrates. And he said something along the lines of, it is a disgrace for a man to grow old without ever seeing the beauty and the strength of which his body is capable of. And when you think maybe the single largest betrayal of our mobility is this ignorance towards our feet. Mark, go back to your 1980s running days. What Peluva running shoe would you put on today?
Oh yeah, no, I mean our sport mesh for sure.
Mesh, yeah.
And then the ATR for the trails, but the sport mesh for the roads. And what's ironic is it's probably got a little bit more cushion. And even though it's a minimalist shoe, it's got a little bit more cushion than that original Onitsuka Tiger that I talked about running only 45 or 50 miles a week. And it was the feet that told me that it was time to quit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the sport mesh right there. Yeah.
I love these.
I've got a pair of Tigers that I wear as my casual shoe all the time, but when I wear them for the day, I feel it in my feet for sure. I'm just like, oh, like there. But definitely.
No, because here's the thing. Because they don't have enough ground feel in them, so they're thin, but they're hard thin if they're the original ones. They were like pasteboard or something. I forget what the term was. They didn't have any compression at all. The ones that I had.
Okay.
It was just so if you stepped on a rock or a nail, you wouldn't get punctured. But it's like the original Vibram 5 Fingers, which I was a big fan of the original 5-toed shoes. I couldn't walk more than 3 miles in those without getting a metatarsal bone bruise on concrete or pavement or hard surfaces because there was not enough cushion. So what we did with Peluva was we built a shoe that acknowledges that most of the surfaces that we navigate on a daily basis are concrete, pavement, hardwood floors, tile floors, marble floors. And we have to, so we could not, as prototypical humans, we couldn't, live on those hard surfaces all the time. So we built a shoe that has just enough to make it feel like you're walking barefoot on a putting green. When
That's
you're
a good
walking.
description. That's a good description. That's what it feels like. They're so comfortable, and once you put them on, and like I know when you're on last time we were talking about, if it might take you a little bit of time to get them on once you get the splay, but then man, once you have them on, that's the shoe you start to look for, because they're so comfortable. And I wear mine. I go barefoot. I don't wear the toe socks for these ones. I just go barefoot in them, and they just feel good. The toes feel good in the pockets. Comfortable. No rubbing. I've never gotten a blister on them. One thing surprising to me on the trails is every now and then you'll get a twig that gets stuck in between the toes that you never thought about before. You're like, oh, I got a twig down there that I got to dig out. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's
No, we get flowers. If we in the springtime, we get flowers in grassy fields.
But Todd, your toes are so strong, you can just snap that twig though, right? With them, so you're good
That's
to
right.
go.
I snapped that twig. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour here, but I do have a final question on my side anyway for Kyle. So, Kyle, for you, what does success look like for you in 5 years with Peluva? And what's your biggest dream for the brand that maybe your dad doesn't even know as of yet for, down the line? Like, what is it that you want to do with the company?
Yeah, it's a good meditative question. Something I actually contemplate that frequently. Sort of, what is it? I'm pretty entrepreneurial, so I do like to participate in a lot of different businesses. That being said, Peluva is it's a passion project for me. I mean, I know that what we're doing, and I know it every day, because every single day, I wear Peluvas exclusively. Every single day I see people looking at my feet, making faces. Like you said, it's a conversation starter, but it's also, there's certain scenarios where I wear them where maybe other people don't find them appropriate or something like this. So it's something I go head to head with every single day. And the sort of the vision of success for Peluva for me is it's just changing the way that people think about, I guess, beauty standards, right? And fashion standards. And I've always thought that the organic human shape, the foot, how it is, which is exactly how we designed the shoe to mimic the shape of the foot, that's the greatest form of art there is. And so my goal is to help people sort of see that for what it is, and to make health fashionable, and to make it so that nobody who wants to wear Peluvas because of the health benefits feels uncomfortable because of the aesthetic, right? And it's a big hurdle for us. It's a big challenge, and it takes a certain level of self-esteem and confidence to wear these shoes and not worry about what people are going to think. I mean, shoes are part of people's identity. I was really into footwear as a kid and in high school, and I love Nike Dunks and Nike SBs, and I was a fashion footwear guy. And so for me to change into something that I just knew was going to have such a positive impact on my life and my health and my longevity, that was so important to me. And I just want to provide people with that opportunity. And I know it takes us sort of shaping the perception and building a brand that is, enough, and building a brand that people see as, whether it's cool or whether it's just something that they can resonate with and say, it's not going to be for everybody, but for the people who want to try it, I don't want them ever to be ashamed of that.
That's very well put. And I think that is definitely something that, like you said, somebody has to have a bit of self-confidence, and but it shouldn't be that way, right? Because this is the natural foot, and the benefits outweigh all of the rest of it. So I love that. And how about you, Mark? Next 5 years, what about yourself? Any dreams or aspirations for Peluva?
Yeah, I mean, I want the shoe to become iconic. I think we're going to see a tipping point where I think people realize that this is the type of shoe that everyone should own at least one pair of in their wardrobe, in their shoe arsenal, whether they're doing sports or whether they're just interested in improving the health of their feet. This is not just a fad. I think this is going to be, again, we say foot health is the new sleep. And once people recognize that, I think we have a product that will address foot health better than any other product out there right now. So I think for us, it's just a matter of time. And I spent my life educating people on how to eat right, how to live, move right. So it's just more education on my part.
Awesome. Well, I know you have some converts over here, so keep up what you're doing, and we look forward to see Peluva continuing to grow. And Todd, you might have something to wrap up with on your side.
Well, I just want to wrap up by saying thank you to both of you, for joining us on the Renegade and helping share conversation that newer runners might not even be thinking about, and they're battling some foot health. We can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing an episode with us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
We thank you for listening to the Renegade Podcast. Each episode, we dare to practice the lost art of conversation to better understand this thing we call life and the human connection that we have with running and endurance sport. If you enjoy the Renegade Podcast, could we ask for a favor? Head on over to our YouTube and click subscribe, and like our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your engagement helps keep the Renegade Podcast growing and going. If you have a show idea, a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, runegadepodcast@gmail.com. That's RUNEGADE podcast@gmail.com. We have a great list of guests coming up that we're looking forward to sharing another conversation with you. Head on over to our link tree, check out our sponsors, our friends of the podcast. We have great discount codes that, thanks to them, they're offering you, the Renegade listeners, to save some money on the best running gear, apparel, fuel, and nutrition. We thank you for listening. And remember, in a world of runners, be a renegade.